Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Chris McCarthy here again. Today, in today's lesson or training session, we're really going to talk a little bit about the idea of change management and how you create as a leader communication plan and strategies in order to deal with, significant change in an organization. Today is just going to be a kind of introductory conversation about the subject, and then we'll, at a later date and time, kind of go deeper into um, the processes behind, excuse me, creating a management, change management plan and communication strategies behind that. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along and give some insights into what you're facing in your organization and with your direct reports in working with a new go to market strategies, and also about how to go about doing best practices in terms of communication. So that's what we're going to talk about briefly today. And so if you look as my screen advances, let's go back one more. So, who's the audience when you're constructing a change management plan, so to speak, in strategies in creating the uh, flow of communications to discuss with your teams. You really have to understand mainly who your audience is. Who's going to be within the organization, who's going to be um, you know really helping lead the charge in terms of this, overall strategy, air quotes there for you, in changing things. So it's really critical to conduct, your target audience, understanding who they are, and who are the key stakeholders in the process within the organization that'll really, be the force behind the change. And stakeholders can be different people. They're the employees, you're the managers, they can be your customers, for that matter of fact. So, understanding who these key stakeholders are is critical. And as you can see on the screen here, I think this is a very good illustration, excuse me, of the process about change in the idea of in the change curve, if you will. So we'll pause for a second there and kind of talk about all the elements of what's inside this chart, what it represents. Number one really is you want to think about change as not only a process, an outcome, or those types of things, but really it is a psychological demanding element on the individuals. So that's really what this diagram really shows well, I think, and that's why I wanted you to start the class off with this. So let's break this down into really four sections of what it is, and also a contradiction to what that might be from a negative perspective. So you have a real global view of what um, change and change management really encompasses. So, number one, let's look at the first part of the curve at the bottom or the left-hand side is the awareness. The awareness of your employees, the awareness of the overall organization that change needs to take place, and without doing so, the organization is not going to progress. And so the idea is that, okay, we know that change needs to happen, and how do we go about doing that? On the other side of that, and that's sort of the psychological element of it, is that with change comes a lot of confusion. A lot of people, individual people on a team might not understand why this change is taking effect or is going to take effect and why it needs to be done. So there's a sense of insecurity and a sense of confusion in this area. So, that's really the first hurdle you have to um, come across when you're planning for change and change management strategy is the idea of awareness. And so number two is really the understanding. The understanding is about the idea of you know, okay, uh, I get why we have to make a change, but I'm not comfortable with that change, and it might have a negative connotation or negative perception that if we do this, hey, I could be losing my job, I can lose my position, I might be replaced by, some sort of technology that makes my job at what I'm used to doing in my comfort zone um, not as comfortable as it used to be. So there's that understanding of either the positive side of things. Hey, this is a fantastic opportunity for the organization to grow, and or it's like I don't any part of this, and it has a very negative change, and I'm going to do everything in my power not to accept or understand that change in the organization. The next step, obviously, is the third step, and as you're going into this bell curve, so to speak, going upwards, the idea of acceptance, and this is where people really understand. Okay, I'm going to do this, or we're going to do this as an organization, and this is where you make that anticipation or acceptance of. Am I going to participate in this? Am I going to support the implementation of this change? Or am I not going to do that? And last but not least, at the top of the arrow really is the idea of commitment. Commitment is saying, okay, I'm all in, 100% willing to go take the steps, what it needs to be as an individual contributor or a management or an executive ownership of this. We're committed to doing this, and that's what's going to happen. And if we do not do that, then and we do not have buy-in from at all levels in the organization, part of that change management coalition I kind of talked about earlier, that's where you're going to be. That's where your failure is going to come into play. So it's very complex, as you would. And, we don't have enough time in this session to really go deep dive into this, but at a later date in time, we'll go much deeper into each one of these things and talk about it from both aspects of being a positive or a negative content. So next, really, one of the most important things really in change is, what are your objectives and how do you communicate these objectives to everybody in the organization? And that's, the important thing is that it's a good and effective communication, and creating a strategy around how you go about communicating this. That's all this the slide really talks about. And the next slide is going to show you some goals, or what are the goals of communication in orchestrating an effective plan for change management. So as I said, communication goals. What are the goals of communication in a change management and change management strategy? So you can see there's about 5 key issues or key goals of communication. Ultimately, what is change about? It's about changing the behavior of the organization, starting from the key stakeholders, let's say the employees, your individual contributors, and how to communicate effectively. Here's where we are now. Here's where we strive to be. And here's the steps that we're going to get to there from A to Z. And that's really, the idea behind a good communication goals and strategies. Next step is really get the action. Okay, build a sense of urgency. This is what needs to be done in terms of saying, hey, we need to do this. We need to do this now. We need to do this quickly. And we need you as our team members to be on board with this activity. And that's part of that communication goal, that two-way feedback instruction capability. So that's what we need to do there. When we're going through this process, effective communication is really a better way of ensuring that understanding is taking process. Understanding of here we are, how are we getting there? Do you understand that? Do you agree with that? Can you provide me feedback why you agree with it or do not agree with it? And that's really where, that key ring is, that circle in there. And if there's contrarians or there are other folks in the organization that are not comfortable with change, you need to persuade them. And the best way to persuade people is through effective communication. So that is what we're talking about in the element here. A communication, strategy and goal and execution of that is really a two-way street. And so the last ring there is really, you give information, you get information, and you can continue to grow along the path. And so that's really what those steps are. And again, as we go into the next session, we'll talk about some of this in a deeper context of things. So, there's two sides to everything. How do you align? Number one really is your workforce development. How do we do this? Aligning our team with the company goals. That's ultimately what we're trying to achieve here with change management and setting up a change management policy. So what do? We encourage our teams to buy into this change. How do we do this? We recognize those who do really well. We train them into the philosophies behind, what good is. Those are the type of things, what we want to encourage in this whole developmental process of our teams to meet those, company goals. And that's really kind of where the workforce development or, the employee goals stand. And it's not just employees, but it's also, management. Think about it, management at all levels, from the C-level all the way down to, your direct managers are going to be responsible for really driving this change in the organization. And how do they effectively communicate that at all levels, how the rewarding this change will be, and how do we reward those at all levels in participating in the success of this, new go-to-market strategy. So that's the type of things that, we work on in the next session, a deeper discussion in terms of how do we develop, key team players from a management perspective to help drive these goals and these change for the organization. As I mentioned earlier, it's really about how do you drive communication, but you have to have effective communication channels in order to do that. And there's a couple, there's really multiple ways you can do this. But, the first step is really, a face-to-face, like we're doing right here in this session here. Face-to-face conversation, a bi-directional dialogue in terms of how we communicate, what we're trying to achieve here. We can do, from a remote location and do a video conferencing like we're doing here. Zoom, WebEx are just tools to really help continue to spread that communication level. You could do phone calls. It could be on phone, with a team. We're a global organization, so we have a lot of offices and stuff like that. Emails, company memos. These are the type of things of effective communication channels that allow us to basically deliver the message and the strategies behind what we're trying to achieve here. So again, we'll go, a deeper dive in the next session about, effective communication channels and how we'll do this. Really, you can't effectively do communications without setting some sort of timeline or standardization and how you deliver, when you deliver it, how you deliver it. and effective communication, creating and establishing a timeline. This is going to start, communicate often, communicate early in the process, from the executive level. The executive level is really here to set the vision of the change or the go-to-market strategy. They're going to put the plan in place. They're going to be the ones that are going to manage the progress of it and the findings to see how things are going. So that's going to be a weekly session. And you can have the executive staff talking down to the senior managers. The senior managers then will overlay or relay the messaging for this week down to, the direct managers. And direct managers will go to direct reports and so on and so forth. This will allow, the chain of command from top down to deliver the message and what we're trying to achieve in terms of this change in this new go-to-market strategy. Then, by providing that information, being able to get feedback from the field, the voice of the field, we can call it, and take that information either on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis, and say, how are we doing? Is this plan working? Where do you see it fit? Where do you see it's not working? And use that data to basically get that information for us. So how do we measure success? I mean, ultimately, why are we doing this change, man? It is to be successful in what we're trying to achieve. And a lot of times that's through our employees, or our customers for that matter. Doing things like a net promoter score. This allows us to see where we are now, do another survey and where we are after 6 months and a year. And a net performance score is a good way to do that. Obviously, employee surveys, even customer surveys for that matter, it is a good way of measuring communication and measuring communication success. We can tie in this communication into the trainings that we do as well, whether it's a quarterly training requirement for some new, technology or new, sales strategies or marketing campaigns, those type of things. That's how we can measure the success of these, and constantly doing exercises with our employees, setting goals, setting achievements, and when those are successfully completed, rewarding those individuals that are able to do that. And also, there's, a successful salesperson is one who has aspirations to maybe move up in the organization, and developing a good plan in terms of leadership development and management development. It's another thing that we can use and help us measure our communications success throughout this change process. So last but not least, how do we apply these new skills? How do we deploy the communication back to us? And what we'll have here is really what we call, or the scholars will call you, is really the idea of a feedback loop. And the feedback loop really, helps you ensure constant communication and workflow over and above, just the tasks that you have available there. So, this is the end of this session. Again, this is just a high-level review of the idea of change management, how we go about creating a plan, how do we create a communication strategy to be successful on our ongoing attempts to improve our organization. And these are just some objectives to help you get there. And I hope you found this informative. Again, give us feedback, give me feedback. What can I do to help you understand the change process a little bit better, a little bit more, and we'll go from there. So I thank you for your time. I hope you got some new understanding and some skills in working with your own teams in order to do this. And we're really excited that you're coming along with us on this journey of us and communication and creating these plans. And ultimately, hopefully, we'll be successful. So thank you and have a good day.